Alex had always been proud of his home. He had worked hard to make it comfortable and welcoming, a place where he could relax after a long day and enjoy his hobbies. One of his favorite spaces in the house was the garage. Unlike many garages that were messy and filled with random clutter, Alex's garage was organized and clean. Each tool had its place, every shelf was neatly arranged, and there were even a few personal projects he had been working on for months. To him, it wasn't just a garage. It was his sanctuary. Living in a quiet suburban neighborhood had its perks. Most of the neighbors were friendly and respectful, and the streets were calm. However, like many communities, they had a homeowners association, and the president, Karen, had a reputation. People often whispered about how she took her role a little too seriously, crossing boundaries and involving herself in matters that didn't concern her. Alex had heard stories but never expected her to target him. He preferred to stay under the radar and avoid unnecessary conflicts. One Saturday morning, Alex was in his garage, carefully arranging a set of tools he had just cleaned. He enjoyed the sound of the wind outside and the smell of fresh paint on the project he was working on. Everything was peaceful, and he felt a sense of satisfaction looking at how organized everything was. He was completely absorbed in his work when he heard the unmistakable sound of the garage door opening behind him. Turning around, he was surprised to see Karen standing there, clipboard in hand, a frown on her face. She had walked right in without knocking or asking for permission. Her presence felt intrusive and unwelcome, and Alex's first instinct was to politely ask her to step outside. However, Karen didn't wait for him to speak. She began inspecting the shelves and peering at the tools as if she had the authority to dictate how he organized his own space. "I'm not sure this arrangement meets the community standards," Karen said in a tone that was more accusatory than helpful. "There are rules about how items should be stored in your garage. Some of these shelves look cluttered and this corner appears unsafe." Alex took a deep breath, trying to remain calm. "Karen, this is my garage. I appreciate your concern, but everything is perfectly safe and organized. These are my personal projects and tools, and I've taken care to keep the space clean." Karen ignored his explanation and continued to make notes on her clipboard. She walked closer to a set of shelves where Alex kept some of his woodworking tools. "According to the HOA guidelines, this area could be considered a violation. You need to make adjustments immediately or fines may be applied." Alex felt a surge of frustration. He had always respected the rules of the community, paid his dues on time, and tried to maintain a good relationship with the HOA. But this felt like an overreach, an attempt to control something that was purely his. He wanted to explain himself further, but Karen wasn't giving him a chance to speak. "I've already explained," Alex said, keeping his voice steady despite the irritation. "This garage is part of my property. I understand the rules, but I'm not breaking any safety regulations or causing any disturbance. I would like you to respect that." Karen looked at him as if he were challenging her authority, and her frown deepened. "I'm just doing my job," she said firmly. "You need to make the necessary changes, or the HOA will have to take action. We have to maintain uniform standards in this neighborhood." Alex felt a mix of disbelief and anger. The situation seemed absurd. How could someone enter his private garage uninvited and dictate how he organized his belongings? He wanted to argue, but he also knew that escalating the situation in the heat of the moment might not be wise. So he nodded politely, hoping she would leave, even though he knew she probably wouldn't. Karen spent another 10 minutes inspecting every corner, occasionally muttering about how certain items could be stored better or how the layout wasn't ideal. Alex watched silently, his patience wearing thin. Finally, she seemed satisfied enough to leave, but not before giving him a final warning. "I expect changes within the next week," she said, and without waiting for a response, she walked out, leaving the garage door open behind her. Alex closed the door slowly, feeling a mixture of relief and irritation. He looked around his garage, now seeing it through a different lens. What had always felt like a sanctuary now felt violated. He couldn't shake the feeling that Karen had crossed a line, and the thought of her entering uninvited again made him uneasy. He decided to take a few deep breaths and calm down before deciding his next steps. Over the next few days, Alex reflected on what had happened. He talked to a few neighbors who confirmed that Karen had a tendency to overstep her authority. They shared stories of minor intrusions and strict enforcement of rules that often didn't make sense. Alex realized that he wasn't alone in dealing with her behavior, but that didn't make the situation any less frustrating. He also began researching HOA guidelines more thoroughly, ensuring he knew exactly what the rules were and how they applied to his property. Alex wanted to be prepared in case there was any attempt to penalize him unfairly. At the same time, he started thinking creatively about how to handle future encounters with Karen. He knew that reacting aggressively would only escalate the situation, but he wanted a way to protect his space and make it clear that his garage was off limits. Alex began sketching out some ideas, small, harmless ways to assert his boundaries while maintaining a sense of humor. He wanted to make a statement that would be memorable, without causing any real harm or breaking any laws. The idea of turning a part of his garage into a playful warning zone started to take shape in his mind. It was a way to reclaim his space, send a message, and perhaps even teach Karen a lesson about respecting other people's property. As he worked on his projects, Alex felt a renewed sense of determination. The intrusion had shaken him, but it also sparked his creativity. He realized that sometimes people need to learn lessons the hard way, but those lessons could be delivered in ways that were clever, safe, and memorable. His garage had always been a place of peace, and he intended to keep it that way, no matter what the HOA president thought. The tension with Karen remained at the back of his mind, but Alex refused to let it dominate his life. He focused on his projects, taking satisfaction in every organized shelf, every tool in its proper place, and every small improvement he made. Each day as he walked through his garage, he felt a sense of ownership and control that no unauthorized visitor could take away. By the end of the week, Alex had made small preparations, subtle enough that they could be seen as part of his normal organization, but clever enough to hint at a playful warning for anyone who might intrude again. He felt ready for whatever Karen might do next, confident that he could handle it with intelligence, creativity, and a sense of humor. The experience had taught him an important lesson about boundaries, respect and standing up for oneself without resorting to anger or aggression. Alex knew that life in the neighborhood would continue, with its quiet streets and friendly neighbors. But he also knew that he had established a new understanding. His garage was his domain, and no one, not even the HOA president, could take that away from him. The stage was set for the next encounter, and Alex felt ready, calm, and quietly confident that he could protect his sanctuary while maintaining his composure and dignity. After the incident in the garage, Alex felt a mixture of frustration and determination. He knew that Karen's actions were not just about rules. They were about control. She wanted to show that she had authority over every corner of the neighborhood, but Alex realized that he didn't have to accept it. He started to think about how he could respond in a way that was clever, safe, and memorable, rather than simply reacting with anger. He spent time researching the HOA regulations more deeply, making sure he understood every clause, every guideline, and every exception. He wanted to be fully prepared in case Karen tried to penalize him or claim that he had broken any rules. Knowledge gave him confidence, and the more he read, the more he realized that his garage was perfectly within the limits set by the association. This made him feel reassured that any creative response would not land him in trouble. Alex also began talking to his neighbors, casually bringing up Karen's strict behavior and seeing if others had similar experiences. Most of them nodded, sharing stories about minor conflicts, unnecessary fines, or intrusive inspections. Hearing these stories made Alex feel less alone and more empowered. He realized that Karen had a pattern of overstepping boundaries, and this pattern could be addressed indirectly, using creativity rather than confrontation. As he thought about his next steps, Alex became inspired by the idea of turning the situation into something playful but firm. His garage had always been a place of organization and personal projects, so he began brainstorming ways to subtly modify it, to reflect a boundary that Karen would immediately recognize if she entered again. The idea wasn't to humiliate her publicly, but to create a gentle, ironic lesson about respecting private property. He sketched several layouts for a small area of the garage, imagining humorous signs and playful barriers that would not cause harm, but would make it clear the space was off limits. He wanted to combine his love for order with a sense of creativity. The plans included a maze-like path leading to one corner, bright-colored tape marking safe zones, and a few subtle sound triggers that would activate if someone moved through the space without permission. He laughed quietly to himself as he imagined Karen navigating the setup for the first time. While planning, Alex also made sure to document everything from the previous encounter. He had photos of the garage as it was, notes about what had happened, and even a written record of the conversation with Karen. This documentation gave him peace of mind, as he knew that if the HOA tried to challenge him, he had clear evidence that nothing in his garage was unsafe or non-compliant. He carefully organized these files in a small binder, ready to reference if needed. Alex spent days preparing the materials. He purchased a few harmless gadgets that would make small sounds when triggered, rolls of bright tape and markers for humorous signs. He made sure everything was safe and easy to remove, so nothing could be misinterpreted as dangerous. His goal was a clever, safe deterrent that would send a message without crossing legal or moral lines. During this time, Alex also reflected on the broader issue of boundaries and respect. He realized that Karen's behavior wasn't just about him. It was about people not understanding limits and the importance of personal space. He thought about how often people in life face similar situations, whether at work, in the community, or even within families. This reflection gave him a deeper sense of purpose in handling the situation creatively. It wasn't just about protecting his garage. It was about standing up for personal rights in a way that was intelligent and controlled. As Alex worked, he shared some of his plans with a few trusted friends, not to gloat, but to get feedback. They laughed at the cleverness of the ideas, encouraged him to make sure everything was safe, and reminded him that humor was a powerful tool when confronting difficult situations. Their support made Alex feel confident. He knew he could handle the situation without anger or aggression, using creativity and intelligence instead. Finally, Alex started implementing some of his plans. He carefully placed the bright tape along the floor in a winding pattern, subtly turning part of the garage into a maze. He positioned small signs in corners with witty messages about respecting private property. The small sound devices were hidden among his tools, ready to activate if someone walked through without knowing the proper path. Everything was designed to be harmless but to deliver a playful message about boundaries. As he completed the setup, Alex stepped back and looked at his work. It was organized, creative, and clearly a space he had claimed for himself. The humor in the signs and subtle traps reflected his personality and intelligence, and he felt a sense of satisfaction knowing that he had turned a frustrating situation into an opportunity to assert his boundaries. The garage was still his sanctuary, but now it had a layer of protection that combined wit, order, and harmless deterrence. Throughout the preparation, Alex continued his routine of daily life, ensuring that the neighborhood remained calm and peaceful. He greeted neighbors politely, maintained the exterior of his property meticulously, and avoided confrontations. At the same time, he felt ready for any future encounter with Karen, knowing that he had created a clever, safe, and memorable way to protect his space. As the week passed, Alex's anticipation grew. He didn't know when Karen might return, but he felt confident that he was prepared. The preparation itself had been therapeutic, turning his frustration into a constructive, creative project. Each step he had taken reflected his intelligence, patience, and understanding of human behavior. He had learned that responding with anger or confrontation was not always effective, but a carefully planned, clever response could achieve a satisfying result. Alex also noticed a subtle shift in his mindset. He felt more confident in asserting his rights, more aware of the importance of boundaries, and more capable of handling difficult people with calmness and creativity. The garage had become more than a physical space. It was a symbol of his ability to protect his property and his peace of mind without compromising safety or integrity. By the end of the week, everything was ready. The garage was organized as always, but now it had a playful, clever layer that reflected Alex's ingenuity and determination. He felt a quiet satisfaction knowing that he had taken control of the situation without escalating it. Karen's next visit would test his preparations, but Alex was ready. He understood that respect was earned, not demanded, and that sometimes the best lessons were delivered with humor, intelligence, and subtlety. He took one last look at the garage before heading inside for the evening. The tools were in place, the signs were positioned perfectly, and the sound devices were ready. The maze-like path was clear, leading to the small, cleverly designed corner that would serve as a playful warning for any intruder. Alex felt calm, confident, and quietly proud of his work. The garage was still his sanctuary, but now it was also a statement of his creativity, intelligence, and ability to stand up for himself without anger or aggression. Alex knew that life in the neighborhood would continue as usual, but he also understood that this situation had changed him in a small but meaningful way. He had learned about the power of preparation, the importance of boundaries, and the value of handling challenges with cleverness and calmness. The upcoming encounter with Karen would be interesting, but Alex was ready to face it with confidence, knowing that his garage was secure, his rights were protected, and his response would be both safe and memorable. Alex woke up on Saturday morning with a sense of purpose. Today, he would begin putting into action the ideas he had been planning all week. His garage had always been a place of order and creativity, and now it would also serve as a clever deterrent for anyone who thought they could overstep boundaries. He brewed a cup of coffee and walked to the garage, looking at every tool, shelf, and project with fresh eyes. Everything needed to be perfect. He started with the tape. Bright-colored strips snaked across the floor in a winding pattern, creating a path that looked like a small maze. The path was not difficult to navigate, but it was enough to guide anyone who entered carefully, signaling that the space was organized and controlled. Alex smiled as he imagined someone unfamiliar trying to walk through it without understanding the layout. Next, he moved on to the humorous signs. Small, witty messages were placed at strategic points around the garage. Some signs read, "Private property, proceed with permission," while others joked, "Unauthorized guests may be tickled by invisible guards." The humor was subtle but clear. Anyone entering would understand that the space was personal and that overstepping would not go unnoticed. Alex carefully positioned the sound devices he had bought. These were small, harmless gadgets that emitted a short, funny noise when someone walked past a certain point. The sounds were not startling or dangerous, but they added an unexpected element that would make any intruder pause. He tested each device, adjusting the placement until the sound triggered exactly as intended. It was a playful yet effective way to remind anyone entering that they were in someone else's space. In one corner, he assembled the mini prison, a foldable cage-like structure with a sign above it that read, "Timeout Zone, for repeat offenders only." The setup was completely harmless but visually striking. It was meant to make anyone who saw it think twice before treating the space casually. Alex laughed quietly at the thought of Karen stepping into that corner and realizing the message. It was clever, safe, and perfectly aligned with his goal of setting boundaries with humor. As he worked, Alex made sure everything was secure. Nothing could cause harm or be misinterpreted as dangerous. Every step was measured, every placement intentional. He wanted the space to remain functional and safe, while also delivering a subtle message about respecting personal property. His projects and tools were arranged neatly, and the overall look of the garage was still clean and organized, reflecting his personality and attention to detail. After several hours, the garage was transformed. It still had the same tools, shelves, and personal projects, but now it had layers of clever deterrents that would make anyone pause before entering. Alex stepped back, taking in the full effect of his work. The bright tape, the humorous signs, the sound triggers, and the mini prison all combined into a playful yet firm statement about boundaries. He felt satisfied knowing that he had taken a frustrating situation and turned it into an opportunity to assert control. Without anger or aggression, he also thought about the upcoming encounter with Karen. He did not know when she might return, but he felt confident that he was prepared. The garage was a reflection of his intelligence and creativity, and he trusted that his setup would communicate the message clearly. It wasn't about embarrassing her publicly, but about setting a firm boundary in a clever, safe way. Throughout the afternoon, Alex continued to refine the details. He adjusted the maze path to make it more intuitive, repositioned a few signs for maximum visibility, and tested the sound triggers again. Every adjustment was small but meaningful, adding to the overall effect. By evening, he felt a sense of completion. The garage was ready, and he knew that the next encounter would be different from the last. While working, he reflected on the lessons he had learned over the past week. The situation with Karen had taught him about patience, creativity, and the importance of standing up for personal rights in a calm and clever way. He realized that reacting with anger or confrontation often escalated problems, but a well-thought-out response could achieve a satisfying result without causing harm or conflict. The garage had become more than a physical space. It was a symbol of his ability to handle challenges intelligently. He also thought about the broader implications. Respect for boundaries is something many people struggle with in daily life, whether in neighborhoods, workplaces, or even within families. Alex felt proud that he was finding a way to address the issue not through conflict but through wit, preparation, and safe ingenuity. It was a lesson that could apply to many situations beyond his garage. As the sun began to set, Alex took one last walk through the garage. Everything was in place, looking neat and intentional. The maze-like path-guided movement. The signs delivered their messages clearly and the sound devices were ready to activate. The mini prison corner stood out as a humorous, harmless reminder of boundaries. He felt a quiet pride in the work he had done. It was clever, safe, and a reflection of his personality. That evening, Alex shared a few pictures with close friends, explaining the setup without revealing all the details. They laughed and praised his creativity, emphasizing how effective humor could be in difficult situations. Their encouragement reinforced his confidence, reminding him that he was handling the situation intelligently and responsibly. Over the next few days, Alex continued his normal routine but kept the garage in perfect order. He checked the devices, ensured the signs were intact, and maintained the overall organization. He wanted to be ready for any eventuality, knowing that preparedness was a key part of handling difficult people. The garage had become both a personal sanctuary and a statement about boundaries and respect. Alex also reflected on his mindset. The process of planning and implementing the garage setup had given him a sense of empowerment. He felt more capable of handling challenges calmly and creatively, understanding that frustration could be transformed into action. The garage was now a symbol of patience, intelligence, and the ability to respond to difficult situations without aggression. He imagined how Karen would react if she returned. He did not wish to embarrass her publicly, but he wanted the message to be clear. The signs, maze, sound triggers, and mini prison corner would all communicate that the space was private, and any unauthorized entry would not be welcomed. Alex felt confident that the setup would make her pause, reflect, and hopefully understand the importance of boundaries. By the end of the week, Alex felt ready for whatever might come next. The garage was perfectly organized, creatively protected, and fully under his control. He knew that Karen's return would be different from the first time, and he was prepared to respond with intelligence, humor, and calmness. His efforts had transformed a frustrating situation into an opportunity to assert control and maintain peace. Walking inside, Alex felt a sense of satisfaction. The garage had always been his personal space, but now it was also a statement of creativity, boundaries, and personal empowerment. He had turned a challenge into a clever solution, demonstrating that difficult situations could be handled effectively with preparation, humor, and intelligence. The next encounter would test his plans, but he was ready, confident, and proud of the work he had done. The morning sun streamed into the quiet suburban streets, casting a warm glow across the neatly lined houses. Alex sipped his coffee, glancing toward the garage with a sense of anticipation. Today could be the day Karen returned. He didn't know exactly when she might come, but he was prepared. The garage had been transformed into a clever, playful deterrent that clearly marked his boundaries, and he felt a mixture of excitement and calm confidence. He made sure everything was in place one last time. The bright tape snaked across the floor in an intricate path, guiding movement subtly while signaling that the space was organized and intentional. The humorous signs were positioned strategically, each message carefully worded to convey boundaries with wit and charm. The small sound devices were tested again, each triggering as expected with a light, harmless noise. Finally, the mini prison corner stood ready, foldable structure perfectly assembled and its sign visible to anyone who approached. Alex stepped back and admired the setup. It was exactly as he had envisioned. The garage was still functional, still a personal sanctuary filled with his tools and projects, but it now carried a new layer of meaning. It was a statement about respect, boundaries, and cleverness. He felt confident that whoever entered would understand the message immediately. It wasn't long before he heard the sound of the garage door opening. His heart rate quickened slightly, a mix of curiosity and anticipation. He peeked from inside and saw Karen stepping in, clipboard in hand, her expression as serious as ever. She had returned, probably expecting to find the same scene as before, ready to assert her authority. Instead, she was about to face something entirely different. As Karen stepped further in, she triggered one of the sound devices. A short, humorous noise played, causing her to startle slightly. She looked around, confused, scanning the space for the source. Alex remained inside, observing quietly, curious to see her reaction. Her eyes then fell on the bright tape maze. She paused, stepping carefully as she tried to navigate the path. The signs caught her attention next, and she read the messages aloud, her frown deepening with each witty remark. The humor was subtle, clever, and unmistakable. Karen reached the mini prison corner and finally noticed the foldable structure and the sign above it. Her expression shifted from confusion to realization. She stepped back, clearly understanding the playful, harmless message that Alex had created. The space was his, and any unauthorized entry was not welcomed. The combination of wit, creativity, and harmless deterrence communicated a firm lesson without aggression or confrontation. Alex stepped into the garage calmly, his presence noted by Karen. "Good morning," he said politely, keeping his voice steady. "I see you've returned. Welcome to my garage." Karen looked at him, slightly flustered but trying to maintain her composure. I was just checking the space," she said, her tone less certain than before. "I understand," Alex replied, smiling gently. "However, this is my personal property, and I've taken care to organize it in a way that works for me. These signs and setups are just a friendly reminder that my garage is private, and I would appreciate it if you respected that in the future." Karen glanced around again, reading the signs and noticing the maze and sound devices. She realized that Alex had created a clever, harmless method to communicate boundaries. There was no aggression, no damage, just a clear statement that the space was off limits. Alex's calm, polite demeanor reinforced the message. For several minutes they stood in the garage, Karen quietly taking in the full extent of Alex's preparations. She made a few notes on her clipboard but didn't challenge him further. The humor, creativity, and intelligence behind the setup were undeniable. Alex had turned a frustrating situation into a memorable, clever lesson without causing harm or embarrassment. It was a perfect balance. Finally, Karen spoke. "I see your point. This is quite detailed." "Yes," Alex said, nodding. "I just wanted to make sure that my boundaries were clear while keeping everything safe and respectful. It's important to maintain order, but it's also important to respect personal space." Karen paused, then nodded slowly, her expression softening. She had understood the message, and Alex's calm approach had prevented any escalation. It was a moment of quiet victory, a demonstration of intelligence, preparation, and cleverness prevailing over overbearing authority. After a few more moments, Karen left the garage without further comment. She closed the door behind her, leaving Alex to reflect on the encounter. He felt a sense of relief and satisfaction. The situation had been handled perfectly. The garage remained his sanctuary, and the message about boundaries had been delivered clearly, humorously, and safely. Alex spent the rest of the day checking the setup once more, ensuring that everything was intact and functional. The bright tape, the humorous signs, the sound devices, and the mini prison corner were all exactly as intended. He walked through the garage feeling a quiet pride in the work he had done. It wasn't just about protecting his property. It was about handling challenges intelligently and maintaining his peace of mind. Over the next few days, Alex continued to observe the neighborhood, noting how others reacted to small interactions with Karen. He realized that his creative approach had not only protected his own space, but also served as an example of handling difficult situations with calmness, humor, and cleverness. The experience had reinforced his belief that preparation and intelligence were more powerful than confrontation and anger. He continued to work on his projects in the garage, fully comfortable and confident. The tools were in their proper places, the shelves were neatly organized, and the humorous setup remained ready for any future visitors. The space had become a symbol of Alex's ability to combine creativity, order, and boundary setting into a single effective strategy. Reflecting on the experience, Alex felt a sense of growth. He had learned valuable lessons about patience, problem-solving, and the importance of standing up for oneself in a calm and clever manner. The garage, once just a place for tools and projects, had transformed into a space that represented intelligence, respect, and personal empowerment. The encounter with Karen marked a turning point. It showed Alex that he could handle difficult people without aggression, using creativity and humor to communicate boundaries effectively. He knew that life would continue with its challenges, but he felt prepared to handle them thoughtfully and safely. By the end of the week, Alex continued his daily routine, confident that his garage was secure and his message had been received. He maintained the organization and playful deterrence, knowing that the space was now more than just a garage. It was a reflection of his values, his intelligence, and his ability to navigate difficult situations successfully. The experience had been a test of patience, creativity, and strategy, and he had passed it with grace and cleverness.